After about 7 years, The Boys has finally came to an end. And it's kind of sad saying that because the show has been pretty dang solid. Well, at least for the most part. There were, like, that last season, not this season, but season 4, did kind of fall off a little bit, but it did eventually pick back up. And I do think it did stick the landing with this final season because there was a lot of hype with this fifth and final season because obviously it being the last season, they obviously had one mission and that was to kill Homelander. Everyone was like, there's no way this season is ending with Homelander still being alive. There were two options that could have happened with this final season. That is option number one: Homelander is stripped of his powers and he is like just, basically human for the rest of his life. And option number two is that he dies. And they kind of went with, or they did kind of technically go with both options, option one and two, where Homelander did get stripped of his powers and then he died. So, yeah, it was a satisfying ending for me, in my opinion, because I know there are some people who are like, not a big fan of how this season ended and how they like killed Homelander and how it felt rushed and all that. Now, I will agree that for some parts it did feel kind of rushed, like especially with Soldier Boy. I think Soldier Boy this season was like the most wasted character this season because he is there to set up this V1 thing because obviously in the start of the show when he comes in and Homelander is like, all right, you gotta go to this facility here and stop Butcher and his team from unleashing this V1 virus or like the soup killing virus. So Soldier Boy goes there and he fights Butcher and everybody, and then he gets trapped in this room, and then they release the virus, and you think Soldier Boy is dead. And I was remember sitting there thinking, no way did they just off Soldier Boy in one episode, but nope. Soldier Boy ends up rising from the what was he on? He was on like one of those like stand thingies that like when ambulances like take you away, they have you on like this carry or like this stand. I don't really know what it's called, but he is like laying down there, and you think that like he's dead because of the soup killing virus. And I was like, no way did they off Soldier Boy in one episode. And sure enough, he rises up, and you're like, oh, he's alive. And then you find out about this V1 thing where basically you are immortal if you have this V1 thing because it has only worked on like a handful of soups. It's only worked on Soldier Boy, Bomb Sight, and then there were a couple other ones whose names I don't really remember, but I know it only worked on like 6 people. Oh, also Stormfront had the V1 as well because that was why she didn't die back in season 2 when Ryan did like that, super mega like blast thing in the finale of season 2. That is why Stormfront didn't die, was because she had the V1 inside of her, so therefore she was able to survive. But she was kind of a vegetable at that point. So she did end up dying, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. So you can still kind of die from the V1, or with the V1, but the V1 basically makes you immortal, and that is what Homelander wanted because Soldier Boy had the V1, so he was like, oh, if Soldier Boy has a V1 and he can withstand this soup-killing virus, then I need to get my hands on some V1. And he spends like the next 3 to 4 episodes searching for the V1, finding the V1, and then one of the most weirdest decisions ever was when they track down Bomb Sight and they have this little battle with Soldier Boy, or like Bomb Sight and Soldier Boy have this little battle, and then this was in like episode 6 when they have this battle, and then Soldier Boy uses his like radiation blast thing to evaporate Bomb Sight, like just evaporate the V1 from Bomb Sight. And when that happened, there was a lot of theories going on because Soldier Boy ends up giving the V1 to Homelander, which like shook everybody. Everybody was like, what the hell's going on here? Why is bro giving Homelander the V1 willingly? Because Soldier Boy was like, yeah, okay, here you go. I still hate you, but, you can have it. It was like, okay. But you end up finding, or there were like theories on the internet going around, and I was kind of believing that as well, that the liquid that was in the V1, like there was the V1 that was in the liquid was evaporated because of the Soldier Boy like radiation blast when he took out Bomb Sight's V1. Everyone was like, oh, what if he took the V1 from that like needle out of the needle, so now it's just basically like blue water. But nope, it ends up being real V1 towards the end because you find out that it is real. He did take V1, and yeah, and then right after Homelander gets to V1, he ends up putting Soldier Boy back into the tube that he was in at the start of the season. So it was like, all right, so the Soldier Boy was literally there for one, to promote the Vought Rising show that is coming out, I think, next year, and two, just to get Homelander to V1, and then right after he got that, boom, he went back in his tube thing because he didn't really like being in the Seven all that much, and he didn't really like Homelander, obviously. So when he tried to leave, Homelander was like, "You ain't going nowhere," and chokes him out and puts him back into his like tube thing. So that was kind of upsetting that Soldier Boy didn't really get to be in the finale of the show or anything like that. But overall, I still found this season to be pretty enjoyable. Like I said, I think I liked it more than season 4 because that season was kind of underwhelming in my opinion. But I do think that season 5 did nail the landing with the finale. I do actually like the finale. I don't like love the finale. It did feel rushed in some parts because the finale is only an hour long. I think episode 7 is longer than episode 8. So, that is kind of upsetting. But overall, I do like how the finale, happened and all that. Because basically, after Frenchie ends up dying, and they end up being like, all right, we gotta kill Homelander, and we gotta do it right now. So, they all go to what was it, the White House? Yeah, they all go to the White House to, obviously fight Homelander, and to me, it seemed super easy to kill Homelander. That's kind of the one thing that, I didn't really like, is that it felt super easy. I feel like that fight scene with Butcher, Ryan, and Kamiko and Homelander in the White House, I feel like that fight scene was only, 3 minutes long, or, 5 minutes long. It didn't really feel as grand, I guess you could say, as some of the stuff that happened in previous seasons. But I still did like it overall. I just found it so funny how during the scene of Homelander beating up Ryan and Butcher, you cut to Kamiko having this moment with Frenchie. And it's or she has this hallucination moment with Frenchie where Frenchie's talking about her, or talking to her because she's all oh, I can't use the radiation blast because I'm not angry, because that was how Soldier Boy would activate the radiation blast, was through anger. But Frenchie's all oh, you don't need to activate it through anger, you need to activate it through love. And I just found that so funny how, while all this is happening, Ryan and Butcher are getting their asses whooped by Homelander. And it was she's having this moment here. Meanwhile, there's a whole action scene going on, in the same exact room while she's having this moment with Frenchie. But then she ends up stripping Homelander from his powers, and I feel like we all saw that coming. Even though it was kind of, underwhelming, I feel like it was we could have seen that coming from the moment Homelander was talking about, V1 and whatnot. And when he finally got the V1, we were all kind of how are they going to defeat him if Bro has the V1? But, it was kind of he would get stripped of his powers. My hair, something's going on with my hair up here. It was kind of obvious that he would end up getting stripped of his powers because with the V1, there was no way Bro was going to lose. So I feel like with the V1, he was getting stripped of those powers, and that was how they were going to kill him. And sure enough, Kamiko uses her radiation blast. Homelander, Ryan, and Butcher all end up getting their powers stripped. It was kind of interesting when that happened because they were obviously holding Homelander back so that Kamiko could use her radiation blast. And I was like, oh, so Ryan and Butcher are also going to get their powers evaporated? And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. And to me, I was kind of would Ryan still be affected by the radiation blast? Because he is a natural born superhero, so it's not like everyone else where they've had Compound V. Ryan was I'm pretty sure the first person to have natural born superpowers. So I was would the radiation blast even affect him? But turns out it did affect him because he ends up losing his powers along with Butcher and Homelander. So then Homelander and Butcher, I almost forgot his name for a second. Homelander and Butcher end up having this beat down. Well, I guess I should say Butcher ends up giving Homelander a beat down and ends up using his iconic crowbar, which seems like that just comes out of nowhere because he has the crowbar in the comics, but he's never used a crowbar, at least not to my memory. He's never used a crowbar like that often. I feel like maybe he might have used one in season one, but I don't really remember when that happened. But he's never like he doesn't always have a crowbar with him, so the crowbar just kind of shows up randomly in the finale. And you're just like, oh, well, there's his crowbar that he has in the comics. So yeah, that didn't feel kind of weird, but he uses that crowbar to obviously kill Homelander, and I do think it was pretty good. Even though there are people online saying that Homelander shouldn't have gone out like that, like, pleading for his life or begging for his life. He shouldn't have gone out that way. And to me, I feel like that kind of fits. I hit my microphone there, but to me, I feel like that kind of fits Homelander's character because if you remember, anytime Homelander would be in like a dire situation where it was like, fight or flight pretty much, he would always choose fight. Like he would always dip out of there the second anything wouldn't go his way. So, I feel like it kind of works when he's stripped of his powers. He's pretty much human, or he is human, and so he's like begging for his life. It fits his character because like anytime he would be in a situation where he would die, he would just leave. He wouldn't like stay or anything like that. He would just be gone. Like in season 3, when it was Butcher, Soldier Boy, and Huey fighting Homelander in that one place, and he was getting his ass whooped, he was like, hell no, I'm out of here. So it's like anytime Homelander is in a dire situation, he just leaves. So when he can't leave and he's stuck there, he's like pleading for his life. I feel like it fits the character well, and Butcher ends up killing Homelander, and he's still alive. And I was like, oh, Butcher is still alive? Like, that seems kind of weird, because I figured they would go out, like, fighting each other. But no, Butcher kills Homelander, and Butcher is still kicking, and I was like, is Butcher gonna survive to the end of the show? Like, that would be kind of surprising if Butcher was still alive by the end of the show. But nope, because Butcher's dog, Terror, ends up dying. And I mean, it kind of made sense, because that dog was, like, I think, like, he was getting pretty old, so I knew that moment was coming any day now. And so Ryan is like, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, you're a bad person. I'm out. So Ryan dips out, and he's like, well, I guess just you and me now, Terror. And then Terror ends up dying from old age. So Butcher ends up turning evil. And that's another thing. A lot of people say that Butcher, like, turned evil out of nowhere. Like, he was already kind of going down that path in season 4. It was just in season 5. He didn't really need to be full-on evil, because it was kind of seeming like he would go down that route in season 4, but then in season 5 he's suddenly like being nice again. But then by the time his dog and Ryan both leave him, he's like turning evil, and he starts to like basically be like, all right, I gotta kill more superheroes because Vought is obviously still around, and there's still superheroes that are around. So he was like, my mission's technically not done here, so I gotta, kill all superheroes, not just Homelander. So he goes to Vought, and Huey follows him because he notices that Butcher's leaving. So Huey goes to Vought, and then Huey and Butcher have this like little moment where they're talking to each other. Oh jeez. Huey and Butcher have this moment where they're talking to each other about like, killing superheroes or not killing superheroes. And Butcher's like, no, we gotta do it. But then Huey's all like, no, we shouldn't do it because there are superheroes that are good. And then Huey is the one who ends up killing the Butcher, which is surprising because I did not think that was going to happen. Like I said, I figured Butcher would go out fighting Homelander, and they would both, like, I guess, take each other out. But no, Huey is the one who ends up killing Butcher because Butcher's like, I wasn't going to stop. I was going to push through with this plan. So, if anyone should stop me, it should be you, because he ends up seeing Lenny through Huey, and he's like, oh, wait a minute, like, you remind me of Lenny, but as he's seeing Lenny through Huey, Huey is able to grab the gun and shoot him, therefore ending Butcher's life. So, yeah, that was kind of surprising of Huey being the one to kill Butcher, but by the end of the show, it is just Huey, Starlight, Ryan, and Sister Stage is still alive, who I thought was pretty funny throughout the whole, like, show, especially when Kamiko, like, basically strips Sister Stage's powers away. She gets up and she's like, wait a second, like, I'm stupid now. And she's like, I'm out. And just, like, dips to Orlando, which I thought was like the funniest thing ever, because anytime somebody in the Seven would die, they would always have this, or like Vought would always have this excuse that like they wouldn't be, that they're not dead, like Firecracker, Black Noir, whenever they would die, Vought would always have this excuse like, oh, they're not dead, they're just in Orlando doing missions. And then when Sister Sage is stripped of her powers, she's like, I'm going to Orlando, peace out. And she just leaves because she's like, I don't want to be any, or I don't want to have any part of this. Like, Homelander's gonna come for me as soon as he realizes that I'm with you guys. I'm out. And she just dips, and she's like the only member of the Seven still alive by the end of the show. Like, everybody else in the Seven is dead. Homelander's dead, the Deep is dead, who got a pretty cool fight scene with Starlight. I did like how they were fighting on a beach, and she ends up using her, like, you know, like, Starlight Blast thing to, like, send the Deep into the water. And obviously the sharks were like, if you come into the water, we gonna kill your ass. So Starlight pushes, or like uses her powers to fling the Deep into the ocean, and then bro immediately gets murked by the sharks. Like, literally he was in that water for probably 10 seconds, and then he just immediately dies. So I did like how they killed the Deep, because I was like, the Deep's still alive. Like, bro has been in the Seven from season 1 to season 5. The fact that bro is still alive is crazy. But nope, by the end of the show, he's dead. And one of the other deaths that kind of like surprised me and that I wasn't really expecting was Ofather, because he was like a new member into the Seven. So I was like, he doesn't really have a reason to die. Like, he's not really an unlikable character. Matter of fact, he was probably one of the more likable characters in the Seven. So I was like, he didn't really have a reason to die or anything like that. So when he died, I was kind of like, oh, alright, I guess they're killing everybody in the Seven. But Sister Sage manages to still be alive by the end of the show, because she beast out to Orlando. She wasn't having none of that. And to be honest, I kind of respect it, because she was also one of those characters that didn't really do anything wrong, you know? Like, she, like, obviously, she, like, kind of pushed Homelander to get V1 and, you know, did kind of work with Homelander, but it was for, like, her own personal agenda. Like, she did not really care about anyone in the world. She just kind of wanted to chill out in her bunker. So it's not really like she had a reason to die. So, you know, when we were speculating who's going to die in the Seven, I was kind of like, you know, Sister Sage is probably going to survive the show, because she has no reason to really go out or to die or anything like that. But by the end of the show, she's still alive, but everybody else in the Seven is dead. Homelander, Deep, Ofather, Noir, Firecracker, like, all of them are dead, except for Sister Sage. She was, like, the only one in the Seven who is still alive by the end of the show. Yeah, overall, I did like the finale, and I did like some of the episodes in season 5. Some of them were kind of eh. I didn't really like how Ryan was kind of underutilized. That was the thing that critics were saying leading up to season 5, was that Ryan was kind of underutilized and wasn't really used that much. Like, he was only in episode 3, where he got beat up by Homelander, and then he was in a bit of episode 4, and then he was in episode 8, and, like, that was it. But I do like what they did with him in episode 8, where, you know, you think that he's gonna go live with Butcher, but then he's all like, nah, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, you're not really a good person either, so, yeah, I'm out. And instead of him being on his own, he ends up basically getting adopted by MM, who ends up remarrying his wife, and he has his daughter, and he ends up adopting Ryan. So I kind of thought that Huey and Starlight would adopt Ryan, but no, it ends up being MM who adopts Ryan. So I guess that kind of checks out. And Kamiko ends up traveling the world, doing stuff that, you know, she thinks Frenchie would like, because obviously Frenchie is dead by episode 7. But yeah, overall I did like this season. And it's going to be sad that there's no more of the boys after this, but at least we have the Vought Rising show to look forward to next year with Soldier Boy. I just wish they would have used Soldier Boy more in the show. Well, I guess they kind of did, but I just wish it was used, like, not just to set up Vought Rising, because, like, every time he would talk about something, it would always be a reference to something that happened in the past, which we're going to see in Vought Rising. So I kind of wish they would have did a bit more with Soldier Boy that didn't really involve promotion, but at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter. But overall, I would give this season like a 7.5, or maybe just 7 out of 10. I was going to say 7.5, but I think I'll just go 7 out of 10. Like, it was a pretty dang good season, and I did like the finale and the first couple episodes, but there were some episodes in season 5 that were kind of eh. But overall, I do think this was a solid season, better than season 4, and I guess we'll have other shows after Vought Rising to look forward to in the boys universe. Like, I think there's this one Mexico show that's coming out. But yeah, overall, that's going to wrap it up for this video. And you guys can let me know what you thought of season 5 of The Boys. And yeah, that is going to wrap it up. We're only 19 subscribers away from 700. We're at 681. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to get to 700 subscribers by at least. I don't think it's going to happen by June because that is like 2 weeks away. Maybe by July when like The Odyssey and Spider-Man Brand New Day come out. Maybe we can hit it around there. So yeah, if we can get to 700 subscribers by at least July, that would be pretty dang nice. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I know there's been a lot of reviews coming out lately, like with Daredevil and what was the other one, Obsession, that I did. But there's just been a lot of stuff like ending and coming out that I've obviously had to review. So after this, the next thing that I gotta review, I think, is like The Amazing Digital Circus, because that finale comes out in like 2 weeks, I think. So that'll probably be the next review for this channel. And then I'll probably review Toy Story 5 and then Supergirl. So I will still obviously do more reviews. It's just that's kind of all I've been doing the past like couple videos, but that is just because there's been so much coming out like in May and April that was kind of all I can make videos on. But I'll try to, you know, mix it up a bit, do more like theory videos, probably do more reactions, because my reaction to Marvin's Nightmare got like over 1,000 views, which is crazy. And it also gave me like 10 new subscribers, which was also crazy. So yeah, I'll probably end up doing more reactions. I'll do more theory videos. I'll try to mix it up a bit. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. There's actually one more thing that I forgot to talk about, and that is the ending for Huey and Starlight, because there was no way they were going to kill Huey or Starlight, because there was that moment where Starlight was like taking these like bullets that were being shot at her, and we were sitting there thinking like, is she dead? Because I mean, she was getting shot a lot in that scene, and I was like, I feel like she's fine, because most superheroes are like bulletproof, are like they're more durable than like the average human. So I feel like she could tank a couple bullets to the gut or like the chest or like the back, because that was where she was getting shot at. And yeah, she ended up being fine. So I was like, there's no way they're killing Huey and Starlight. I feel like those were the two characters who were like the most safe. And the way they wrap up Huey's storyline, I did like, because I obviously talked about MM's storyline and how that wrapped up, but I forgot to talk about Huey's like ending. And basically what happens is Huey ends up like getting this offer to work for like the president, but he obviously doesn't want to because it involves like soups and all that, and he's like, nah, I'm good, I got my own like shop that I work at, I'm good. So basically he ends up starting up like this it's like a radio type thing, and I find it kind of funny because he goes from like his starting point way back in season 1 of The Boys was basically like this, like it was like this tech store type thing, where obviously that is where he meets Butcher, and this whole thing starts. So after it's over, he ends up kind of just going right back to working at a tech store instead of it being like a normal job. It is his own tech store, and he's working there with Starlight, and they end up having a child who they name Robin, which I thought was kind of funny, but also kind of weird because, you know, Robin was the name of his previous girlfriend who died from a train running into her, or running through her, I should say. So it's kind of nice because it's a nice, like, little, like, you know, honor moment where he's, like, honoring his past girlfriend, but it's also kind of weird at the same time because it's the kid with his new girlfriend, and he's naming it Robin, which was his previous girlfriend. So it's kind of weird, but also kind of a nice moment there. And it could honestly be either way. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl, because I feel like there would be some boys named Robin out there in the world. So, you know, it doesn't really automatically give away that it's a girl. We end up never finding out what kind of gender the baby is. But yeah, Huey ends up opening this like radio tech store with Starlight, and they have kids together, and the show ends kind of like how it starts, with Huey on the side of the road. Instead of looking down, he's looking up. So it's a nice kind of full circle moment there. And I was just sitting there. I remember sitting there thinking like, imagine if someone just like runs through Huey and that is like the end and he ends up dying. Like that would have been kind of funny, but also kind of, you know, sad at the same time. And then maybe they could have had like a post-credit scene of it being like a dream or something like that. That I feel like would have been a pretty funny ending if they ended it with just like someone running through Huey and he's just dead, and then there's like a post-credit scene of him waking up and it's like a dream. That I feel like would have been pretty funny. But yeah, I realized I forgot to talk about that. I did like the ending for Huey and also the endings for like MM, Kamiko, and all that. But yeah, I knew there was no way they could end the show with Butcher still being alive because I was kind of shocked that Butcher was still alive after killing Homelander, but he ends up dying, like I mentioned. But yeah, I do like the endings for all the characters, and yeah, that's really all I got for this video. So now I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.